going to continue on the topic of how to be wrong better. And yesterday I spoke about admitting when you're wrong, being a big step that many of us know, super hard to do, but a big step. But the step beyond that, the step to acknowledge that you might be wrong before you have to. So before you commit to a belief, before you commit to certainty, to acknowledging, I don't really know for sure. I may not have all the information. I may not have thought of this perfectly, so I don't know. So rather than having to kind of ask for forgiveness or apologize or acknowledge you're wrong after the fact, try and be more proactive about it. What I want to do today, though, is talk about why being wrong is such a struggle to begin with. Why it's so hard, at least for me, right? Because that's all I could really speak about, but maybe it's representative of some others. And it's funny because the first thing I think about when I think about being wrong and being wrong better is that there's like an oxymoron to that, or something that's contradictory or doesn't make sense. And I say that because I fear that people might hear I'm saying something that is weak, or that it's embracing being a loser. Like, be okay being wrong, be okay being on the losing side. And it's so subtle in my mind that I almost don't catch it right away, but that leap to interconnecting or connecting being wrong with being weak or losing is something that seemingly happens so natural for me, but I don't know that it's right. Certainly there's components of it and there's situations where that might make sense, but to have that view that when you are wrong, you are weak and you are a loser, it's not a shock then that, it's something that you want to protect against. It's something that it's very difficult to deal with. So I think that illustrates the issue, but also the benefit, the opportunity. If you can handle being wrong better, maybe you can disconnect and untangle those things that don't necessarily logically mean to be tangled together. And as I think about, why, again, I can only speak for myself, but when I think about being wrong, like truly being wrong about something that matters, something that's important, something that you feel really certain and you've committed to, there's a weird discomfort that comes with that. That's almost hard for me to articulate. It's hard. It's so raw and kind of base emotion that I recognize it instantly as discomfort, pain, bad, but I can't say much more about it than that. I can't really articulate its source, where it comes from, what it is. I can't even articulate what it feels like per se, other than that I know it's uncomfortable. And, whether that be something that's wired deep in our DNA or our mental wiring or whatever it might be, it speaks to the challenge, because for me, it feels like there's that deep uncomfort that I recognize with that my mind, and I speak of my mind sometimes as a separate entity, because I do think it's the conscious versus the subconscious, I guess. My subconscious mind seems to have a much better grip on what it is and how terrible it is. And therefore, it takes actions to protect the conscious mind from that. You don't want that pain. You don't want to have to face that discomfort. So there's things that happen that it does, defense mechanisms, all sorts of different things to protect against that. And in many ways, that's what makes it hard to be wrong better. Because at its root, being wrong better means facing that, acknowledging that, coming to grips with the fact that it's okay to be wrong, almost taking the power away from that discomfort that you get. You have to face it, though. You have to look at it. You have to accept it, right? Because I don't know that it's something that makes it go away as much as if you can understand it, it loses some of its power. But to understand it, you really have to look at it. So you kind of have to go through the fire to get to it. And I think our minds, for various reasons, to conserve energy, to protect our identities, all sorts of things we can get into, its inherent response is just like a real fire. Like, no, you don't go towards that. You don't touch it. You go away from it. That's the instinctual reaction we have. And that results in us not wanting to admit we're wrong, or not wanting to admit up front that we could be wrong, and all those things. So that's what you're dealing with. That's what you're trying to overcome, which is no small battle, because for many of us, myself included, I'm sure on many topics, definitely even more topics, historically, we want to convince ourselves that we are aware of all that's going on. We don't want to accept the fact that we don't have full grasp and full control over that kind of battle that's happening in our subconscious and trying to battle this feeling and this discomfort. We want to believe that, like it's totally fine. Like I get it, I understand that it's fine. It's not a problem for me, right? And almost in like an insane logic, many of us believe that like, for sure. I'm sure I have flaws of the mind, I have biases, there's all sorts of things going on, but I have a handle on it and it's not negatively impacting me, which by its very definition isn't true, but it's what we want to believe. And I think it's part of that defense mechanism where, we don't want to open that door. We don't want to go anywhere near that fire. So we don't even want to give ourselves the breadcrumbs or the incentive or the thought that there's any value in going towards it. So we tell ourselves like we know it already. There's no reason to even look at that. It's as if we've already seen it. We know it. It's fine. And this sounds kind of abstract and it sounds a bit dramatic, I'm sure. And again, I can only speak for myself, but this is what I envision is happening in my mind when I'm wrong about something, when I commit to something and I'm proven wrong, or when I'm trying to upfront maintain objectivity and try and be, honest about it. These are the things that I think are kind of representative of what's going on in the mind, and this is what we're trying to overcome. So when we talk about, how to be wrong, there's manifestations of it. There's actions we take, like admitting it or trying to be more objective up front. But this is, I think, the root of it. This is the battle, if you will, that's happening day to day. So I'll continue to talk more about it. How do you drive this battle? How do you win this battle? And no surprise, for me, much of it is logical, mathematical thinking to identify, to make sense of it, to overcome some of those defense mechanisms our mind holds. And then the mental toughness to when we get to that fire, to actually go through it and get to the other side.